It's 1976 and Fela Kuti has just released his track Yellow Fever, where he sings yeah thing, ugly thing, yellow fever, you dey bleach. Hello everyone and welcome back. In fact, I should be welcoming myself back because this video is long overdue. So today we're diving into an article that I wrote last year titled Bleached. And of course, as the title suggests, we're exploring skin bleaching, which is a phenomena around the world, not just in Nigeria. We'll be looking at some of the history behind skin bleaching and also trying to understand why people even do it. So some of the questions that I've been reflecting on from this topic are whether it's hypocritical to draw the line at skin bleaching, especially in a world where other cosmetic procedures are accepted, such as your boob jobs, your lip fillers, your Botox, your BBLs, the ethnic rhinoplasty that the girlies are doing, and some of the guys. And if those aforementioned forms of body modification are acceptable, then why do we draw the line at skin bleaching? Who makes the rules? Whether or not it's rooted in colorism or personal choice ideology, or I do it for myself ideology, who gets the final say in deciding what insecurity people get to address and what's right? And another question is whether or not bleaching is a product of white supremacy, or whether we are giving the ideology too much credit. So skin lightening, colloquially known as bleaching, has been a long-standing cosmetic practice for many years. It's been driven by the perception that lighter skin is synonymous with beauty, class, prestige, and the ideas around skin lightening reflect the complex economic, social, and cultural influences around beauty politics. I know it's often believed that those engaging in skin bleaching don't actually understand the significant health risks associated with it. But the reality is that quite a lot of people do, but for them, the risks do not outweigh the benefits. It's a form of social navigation for many people, especially when we contextualize it to Nigeria, whereby lighter skin may offer opportunities that darker skin may not. So as touched on earlier, lighter skin for centuries has been idolized by many cultures across the world. It's long been a sign of wealth, social standing, and beauty. Historically, those of a lower socioeconomic standing were outside. They were outside doing manual labor. And of course, due to the prolonged sun exposure, that resulted in tan skin or darker skin. In contrast, lighter skin became associated with class privilege and leisure. But this complexion hierarchy is not a uniquely African issue or an African issue exclusively. In Europe, for example, aristocrats pursued lighter skin with rigor. What they would do is that they would make concoctions laced with very toxic substances such as arsenic to lighten their skin. They were very oblivious about the long-term health effects. Similarly, in China and also Japan, both men and women used to use rice powder in order to have really pale white-ish skin. And then if we fast forward to the early 20th century America, the pursuit of lighter skin reached some extreme, with some physicians experimenting with radiotherapy in order to lighten their skin. So this fixation with lighter skin isn't new, nor has it ever been geographically confined to Africa. And it's a testament to how much skin tone has literally been fixed into beauty standards. Nonetheless, by the 1920s and 1930s, a significant shift began to take place in the West. White consumers in Europe and North America began to abandon their skin lighteners in favor of tannin products. Sunbathing and outdoor leisure, once markers of the working class, were now being reimagined as symbols of wealth and sophistication. Tan skin became fashionable, it became luxurious, it signaled that one had the ability for outdoor leisure and travel. So in effect, whiteness evolved and it began to carve out this new expression for status and privilege. But as the Western beauty ideals began to change, the manufacturers of skin lightening products recalibrated their strategy. They began targeting African American communities before expanding their reach to the Caribbean and Africa. And this marked the genesis for the black consumer base for skin lighteners.
Up and down in the sun every day, your color will fade. And you want to have that nice, even tone. So that's what I do. I do lighten it because I want everything to be even.
When we consider Africa, it's clear that the colonial era definitely left an imprint when it comes to perceptions of beauty and palatability. Whiteness represented civilization, it represented virtue, it represented beauty. The consequence of that was that it marginalized those with darker skin tones and blackness in general. We see evidence of this ideology when we look at America and also when we look at Australia in regard to their caste systems. In Australia, the Aborigines were completely degraded. Colonial powers also introduced this interracial marriage system, and that was a bid to just gradually remove blackness through reproduction. In the apartheid era in South Africa, they had the maxim white is right, which was in fact a state policy. Very cheeky place, South Africa. Very, very cheeky. There's this Mean Girls meme on my phone and it says something like, oh, how are you white and you're from South Africa, or something like that.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
And this is just a reminder that white people make up a significant minority in South Africa, yet they own over 70% of the land. Very, very crazy stuff. We need not delve into the apartheid era too much, but as we all probably know, you know, whiteness was seen as, it was at the top of the ladder when it comes to power, and black people were subjugated by white people, and to be honest, they still are today. Nonetheless, these histories and ideologies continue to inform contemporary beauty standards across Africa, whereby we see the high valuation of lighter skin being part of the social conditioning. In fact, during the apartheid era, the skin lightening industry in South Africa experienced a significant boom. White-owned businesses aligned their commercial expansion with the growing consumer demand for lighter skin amongst black South Africans. So what we see is a very predatory industry, which is the cosmetic industry. The beauty industry, in my opinion, is a very predatory industry. It thrives with insecurities. If you didn't have an insecurity, you will have one by the end of the day. There's always something to want. There's always something to need. There's always a way to look better, to be better. There's just always something. Arguably, the skin lightening industry in South Africa thrived by capitalizing on the desire for fundamental human rights, or even the desire to just be treated well, because those who were black and had lighter skin had more access to essential liberties such as freedom of movement, quality education, and the right to vote. And by the late 1960s, skin lightening products were reportedly the fourth most common household product in South Africa, trailing behind soap, tea, and milk. Moving on, religious art and imagery, particularly that of the ones we find in Christianity, has had an impact in fostering colorist attitudes. The portrayal of Jesus Christ as white, which has been ingrained in religious art for centuries, and that's due to the historical dominance of European Christianity and the constant Eurocentric lens in which Christianity has been crafted. Mainstream Jesus Christ is a white man with shoulder length, wavy-ish brown hair. Very interesting. But by presenting Jesus Christ as white, it implicitly suggests that that is the symbol of virtue, goodness, purity, holiness, while simultaneously darker skin gets associated with the inverse. And again, this has led to the devaluation of people with darker skin tones in both religious and secular spaces. According to a research study by the Human Relations Area Files, which was conducted more than 40 years ago now, out of 312 cultures, 51 use skin color as a criteria for beauty, and in all but 4 of these, lighter skin was preferred. Let's take India, for example, for cross-cultural comparison. Lee and others write, in Indian culture, black is associated with underprivileged people and is a symbol of dark, dirty, wrong, hell. In Hindu religion, Kali, a dark-skinned goddess, is a symbol of ugliness, cruelty, and destruction, and manifests a negative association of dark-skinned women in Indian society. So this just supports the point that imagery matters, religious imagery in particular matters in terms of shaping our consciousness around skin tone. So how do people even bleach their skin? Funnily enough, last week or so, my brother was actually of the belief that you use your kitchen or toilet bleach to bleach your skin. And I was like, no, they don't. How do you not know that? Bleaching involves using chemical agents designed to suppress the production of melanin in the body, not your kitchen or toilet bleach. Product can be found in many different forms: soaps, pills, injections, creams. They're often marketed under different euphemisms such as toners, brighteners, revitalizers, fairness creams. According to global health data, 77% of women in Nigeria reportedly use skin lightening products, 40% in Ghana, 35% in South Africa, and 66% in DRC. And despite attempts to ban it by some African governments, the enforcement remains really ineffective and lax. As a result, many bleaching creams and products continuously flood the market, many of them which are potentially dangerous. You can literally go into any shop in Nigeria where they sell things like cosmetics and creams and get skin lightening products. The World Health Organization has listed skin bleaching as a public health issue, citing both its prevalence and long-term health consequences. In Asia, the practice is particularly prevalent. Nearly half the population in South Korea, Malaysia, and the Philippines engage in skin lightening practices, with India being 60%. And it's been estimated by 2027 the global skin lightening industry will exceed $24 billion. Okay, so I just want to take some time to discuss Asia a little bit. Of course, as the figures show, they bleach like mad. And I think when we discuss bleaching, we tend to discuss it from a black lens as opposed to what's really going on worldwide. The beauty standard, particularly in certain places such as South Korea, is literally white as snow. India, we know they have a caste system. Lighter skin is seen as more desirable. They have those who have darker skin tones literally at the bottom of the social ladder. Let's take K-pop for example, that Korean band. What stood out to me is the fact that their skin is incredibly light, which is very common amongst other Korean celebrities and on their films. But of course, what's happening is the fact that their skin has been lightened a lot cosmetically, and then they also supplement that by lightening their skin again on digital format. And that's all done because they're adhering to the beauty standard, which tells them that lighter skin is better.
What should I do if I want to have a fair and clean skin like them? Hi guys, I'm Lin. As a medical coordinator in Korea, I've offered safer and more effective methods, that is laser treatments combined with whitening skincare products, popular whitening methods in Korea.
In the Philippines, if you have a fairer or lighter skin, you're more prettier, you're more beautiful, and you have a lot of advantages.
East Asian scholars generally argue that this phenomenon is not a symptom of white supremacy. Instead, it's rooted in class stratification and aesthetics that is rooted in their own culture. I also came across a video on TikTok with an East Asian creator saying the same thing. It's essentially very consistent with what I've also read in academic papers. And that's the fact that skin lightening in Asia is tied to class and hierarchy as opposed to white supremacy.
Japanese people glorifying pale skin did not come from white supremacy. They were doing that literally 1,000 years before any white people ever got there, and it's clear when you look at the advertisements, they're not trying to be white people. They want to be pale Japanese people. It is racism and classism, just not white supremacy. Pale skin indicated that you came from the East Asian lineage, not from the Pacific Islander lineage. Pale skin indicated you never had to work outside or even walk outside. This is an anecdote to make a point that if you have a worldview where white supremacy is blamed for everything, then you can absolutely make an argument. People have done PhD thesis writing about how everything goes back to white supremacy. That doesn't mean you should, when it erases the history. Remember, white supremacy is really new, only a few hundred years old, to the world being 10,000 years old. And if you really think about it, do you really think the world is so narrow and two-dimensional that only white supremacy would do evil in this world? The belief that only white supremacy can do this much damage is white supremacy. Then what's happening is, by attributing everything to white supremacy, you're absolving all the other structures of evil, and you're causing white supremacy to look more powerful and more dominant than they actually deserve.
And I myself has also thought about this in the African context. Given the lack of written records, it is difficult to determine whether or not lighter skin was always associated with privilege in pre-colonial societies. It's possible that the wealthier and the royalty were indoors and didn't have much contact with the sun, and therefore were naturally lighter, and this may have been perceived consciously or not as a marker of status. Yet there is very little to suggest that darker skin was ever degraded the way it has been in the post-colonial era and during the colonial era. But what I do believe for certain is that the colonial era definitely solidified and institutionalized the biases and skin hierarchy or skin tone hierarchy. Japanese whiteness is about Japanese racial identity, and according to Aishaayanx, is seen as very different and even superior to Western whiteness. And the writer goes on to state, for example, Caucasian women are regarded as beautiful in Japan, although Caucasian men are more likely to be described as big-nosed, hairy barbarians. Still, they are regarded more positively than blacks, who are described by some Japanese as bestial and animal-like. Taking it back to Nigeria, the promised land, there's no denying the fact that lighter skin tone is seen as very desirable. It definitely comes under the umbrella of pretty privilege. Pretty privilege, for those who may not know, is defined as social advantages and preferential treatment given to those who are defined as more physically attractive. And of course, by extension, it confers onto them more benefits, such as economic benefits maybe, social benefits maybe, romantic benefits also. So when you consider why people may lighten their skin in places like Nigeria, it can be argued that it is a pragmatic response and it's a strategy for mobility and access to social privilege. As said in one academic paper on the subject, skin bleaching may be a rational response to being born in racially and economically segregated societies. So again, it is a response to a system that rewards proximity to whiteness and lighter skin in general. And here we begin to see the beast of colorism. Colorism is defined as prejudice or discrimination within a racial ethnic group that privileges lighter skin tones over darker ones. It very much finds its origins in the hierarchies that were forged during the colonial era and of course slavery. These ideas have been internalized by black communities and there has been a failure to fully deconstruct and decolonize these ideals. Likewise, in today's societies, Eurocentric ideals continuously shape perceptions around beauty. Cough cough, ethnic rhinoplasty. Some argue that wigs and European hair extensions are also a symbol of that. Guilty as charged today. In the study by Lee and others, they argue that Eurocentric ideals around beauty started to take root during the colonial era in the 18th century, but were later reinforced by mass media and consumer culture in the 20th century. They also went on to note that white males occupy the top of the social hierarchy, while non-white females, especially black females, were at the bottom. The study references Stuart Hall writing that people from non-white cultures like African Americans bleach themselves in an attempt to blend in the dominant society. Okay, media. I talk about media a lot. Media is important, we consume it daily and it conditions our thinking. And it plays a huge role in maintaining social views and social structures. And in Nigerian media, just like what we see in Western media, the dominant beauty ideals are pushed forward the most. The OG Nollywood actress Mercy Johnson also shared in an interview that her darker skin, particularly when she was starting out, was a disadvantage to her in Nollywood. And you know what? My little case study today is another Nollywood OG. He is in fact a Yoruba Nollywood OG, and that is the icon Babasui. Anyone who's my age and older should know him. He's died now, but he was very much a huge Yoruba comedian. His on-screen personality had a very particular archetype, one that if we view it through a more transnational lens, it would be considered blackface. There are some nuances around it, but it does very much resemble that whole blackface act. It's definitely not a like-for-like model in regards to white people blackface, but the character was very much represented as unrefined and very unsophisticated, and this was conveyed through his mannerisms, the use of broken English, but it was also represented through his visual presentation. He wore very confused clothing, like he would wear a jacket, he'll wear a hat, he'll just look ridiculous, and he also painted his face black. And the use of face paint to darker his complexion does actually present us with quite an interesting question on this topic. And that is, what is the role of skin tone in constructing comedic value? What function did the exaggerated darkness even serve, if not to signal inferiority, backwardness, or lack of modernity? The reliance on darkened skin for his character trope does suggest an association between dark skin and social marginality. And while it may not have been consciously intended, it does reveal a colorist logic, one where darker skin is a visual shorthand for lower class or lower status. I remember in our house, in the living room, we had this calendar and it literally had Babasui's face planted on it. And I thought it was just the ugliest calendar ever. Like, imagine Babasui's face like planted in your living room. Anyway, for whatever reason, he actually abandoned that whole blackface thing towards the later years of his career. When I would see him in Yoruba films, he would still be a comedian and he would still be really funny, but he didn't paint his face anymore. Why that may have been the case, I honestly couldn't tell you. To round up on the Babasui point, it just shows us that there is indeed a skin tone hierarchy within the social cultural imagination. Advertising for both bleaching products and unrelated products upholds the notion of lighter skin, and of course it operates on a subliminal level. Lighter skin models dominate billboards, television screens and advertising. In film and TV, lighter skin women are more likely to be cast in leading roles, and they definitely enjoy greater screen time and visibility. This as well is a big issue in Hollywood, and it's often spoken about by the black community. I'm sure this year there was this uproar, or maybe the last part of last year, where there's a film that's being made. I think is it The Things Fall Apart movie. They were casting quite a lot of light-skinned black people, and people were just like, what the hell? What the hell? As Banton articulates, race and ethnicity become the signs that lead to the assignment of positions in the overall system of exploitation. Mass media and marketers have aided and abetted this phenomenon by portraying distinction between races and ethnic groups. Hollywood movies and mass media in the West frequently portray darker-skinned people as lower class, dirty and evil, while white or light-skinned people are depicted as morally purer, better educated, more intelligent and cleaner. Also, as a side note, I would say that there is a cultural difference between the level of stigma about skin bleaching in Nigeria compared to those in the diaspora. In the diaspora, especially amongst the second gen, it is seen as quite taboo to bleach your skin. It's seen as the manifestation of self-hate, colorism and internalized racism. In Nigeria, however, I would say that the attitude is significantly different. It's a widespread practice done by women and done by men, and it's endorsed either directly or implicitly. I've seen celebrities and influencers promote skin lightening products. I've seen celebrities change their skin tone 4 shades lighter. At the end of the day, no one is going to do a think piece on you if you decide to bleach your skin. Changing one's skin tone is more or less normalized. That's not to say someone won't warn you or caution you or tell you that what you're doing is really bad and it's going to damage your skin, but ultimately it is more or less just whatever at the end of the day. Like, no one actually cares. We all know Bob Risky is a bleach goddess. Toke Makinwa as well changed her skin tone. She did, however, later in was it an article or a podcast, express some kind of regret about doing so, but she's not bothered to revert since then. So what does pretty privilege look like when it comes to lighter skin? In a study, it was found that men will consciously favour women with lighter skin tone. The study also noted that Nigerian sex workers bleach their skin to attract more male customers. It was also said that in the labour industry, lighter skin employees were given more people-facing, customer-based roles. And the rationale behind that is that they would attract more clients. When we talk about bleaching, there's a lot of corporate greed involved in it. Many of your leading household brands dominate this space, constantly reinforcing colorism through their marketing strategies. They capitalize on the very hierarchies and insecurities that we've already discussed. Take, for example, Nivea's 2017 campaign featuring Miss Nigeria at the time. They were promoting a natural fairness cream which ran across Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon and Senegal. And the billboards displaying the product literally said, for visibly fairer skin.
Wow, you have the most beautiful glowing skin.
Now I have visibly fairer skin.
It was, I believe, removed later on due to backlash. But it is very clear that these corporations absolutely exploit colorism, they exploit insecurities, and they do that simply to generate profits. They do not care about you. They just want your money. Most skin lightening products do originate from Asian countries, particularly India and Indonesia, many of which contain harmful substances like mercury, hydroquinone and various different steroids. I must add though that hydroquinone and steroids are actually valid products. They are used for a range of different skin issues, but of course under your doctor's supervision. In the West, I know in the UK they are controlled substances. I can literally walk into any pharmacy in Nigeria and get those products. I can walk into your MedPlus, your Mary Kay, and I can pick them up. The topic on how much power the state should have when it comes to drug restrictions, however, is a topic for another day. But what makes the steroids and hydroquinone very problematic is the fact that of course it's often abused. If you're constantly using these products to end up looking like Michael Jackson at the end of it, of course you're doing a lot of damage to your skin. The Nigerian government has taken some steps to regulate these products, and this is through the Cosmetics Products Regulation of 2009. Under this act, NAFDAC has the authority to ban bleaching products. Section 1, subsection 2 of the act stipulate, no person shall import, manufacture, distribute, sell, display for sale, or offer for sale any cosmetic product which contains more than 2% of hydroquinone alone or 1% in combination with other lightening ingredients. The act also prohibits the sale of any products with mercury, which is also used as a skin lightener but is very, very dangerous. The penalties include fines and jail time, but NAFDAC is very inefficient and lax in enforcing this legislation. They're very, very bad even when it comes to enforcing food regulations. And likewise, these NAFDAC officials, you can very much bribe them to get your product out. And as a result, lightening creams have found a very lovely home in Nigeria where they continue to be widely accessible. Need I say, skin bleaching does carry a lot of harmful side effects. It's been linked to liver and kidney issues, skin cancers and other skin conditions, which of course is very ironic because people do it to beautify themselves and they end up looking horrible because the effects of it are very damaging and irreversible. If you know what damaged skin looks like as a result of skin bleaching, then you would know that I'm not exaggerating at all. It is indeed a paradox. You chase beauty or your idea of beauty and then you end up, if you're not careful, with long-term unattractiveness because your skin is literally damaged. But again, I raised a question that I posed earlier at the start of this video. But who makes the rules? Yes, it's rooted in colorism. Yes, it's rooted in the colonial era. Yes, it's rooted in some form of white supremacy. Yes, you end up with health problems, be that internally or externally. But if you see no problem with ethnic rhinoplasties, BBLs, lip fillers, Botox, can you really draw the line at skin bleaching? After all, they're a branch of the same tree. These are all acts people are doing because they're being told that they're not good enough or they need to beautify themselves even more. We have this saying in Yoruba which goes by ẹni tó bá sọ pé Ọlọ́run sí, òrìṣà tí kò tó Ọlọ́run ló máa sìn, which essentially means those who say that there is no God, a God which is lesser than God, is the God that they're going to worship, which is basically a reminder for gratitude and also contentment. And I know some of the rebuttals on that question may be the fact that of course skin bleaching does cause long-term damage, but there's also damage associated with other cosmetic procedures, even death. I've been seeing a lot on TikTok and people wanting to bleach their coochies or their arses because it's darker in that area. There's this cosmetic fixation with hyperpigmentation, but at the end of the day, if you are melanated and you have melanin, that is a natural result, right? You get hyperpigmentation sometimes. But in society, we present it as unattractive and not nice, and then it causes us to find solutions to our blackness. Hyperpigmentation is a natural part of being black. We're just told by society that an even skin tone is what makes you look nice and it's what's better. But then again, if you can bleach your bumhole, can you turn around and tell someone that it's wrong for them to bleach their skin 2 shades lighter? Because essentially that is what would make them feel more beautiful or more secure. Where do we draw the line? Tell me, I would love to know in the comments. Final thoughts. So back to Fela's song Yellow Fever, where he ridiculed and critiqued the act of skin bleaching by calling them foolish, ugly and stupid. His opinion on the matter is valid, but it's also important to assess the reasons why people may bleach their skin. But are those who bleach their skin really that stupid? Are they not just people responding to their society? Societies where skin colour holds significant social currency. And having lighter skin may influence opportunities and also relationship prospects. So this may be their way of navigating their society to be more favourable towards them. However, that being said, mere empathy won't suffice in addressing this epidemic. We definitely need to allocate more resources and understanding towards decolonising beauty standards. But only until then will Black people be able to embrace themselves wholeheartedly. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram to keep up to date. I also tend to link my work there. I will also start linking my references on my Instagram. I just have so much work, but it is coming, I promise. But if you do enjoy my work, please do subscribe again. It will help me make more videos and allocate more time to making more video essays. Anyway, bye for now, and I shall see you next time.